Three, two, one. All right.
Hey everyone, welcome to the first ever episode of The High Five. I'm Chet Burkowski alongside Josh and Brian. In each episode, we'll be breaking down the top five of any given category.
Dude,
and
why are you eating this mic? You can hold it a little bit further away from your face.
Is it too close?
Yeah.
Well, this
Looks awkward.
It looks
Oh,
weird.
it's awkward.
Yeah.
How's this? Is this better?
Yeah. Something more natural.
It's natural for me. All right, I'm starting over then. Can you still hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of The High Five. I'm Chet Burkowski alongside Josh and Brian. In each episode, we'll be breaking down the top five of any given category, and we are attempting to alienate at least half our potential audience with this first topic, which is top five presidential scandals. Thank you to Trump's New York trial for the inspiration. Josh, Brian, you guys ready?
I think so. Yeah. I'm ready. Born ready.
Been ready since at least 15 minutes before this podcast.
Yeah. Even though I didn't answer.
Okay, first things first. How are you guys defining scandal? What were the criteria that you guys were looking at? Josh, why don't you start?
All right. Well, first of all, I limited my list to the U.S., so I just went domestic scandals. You really could have taken this category international, but I decided to keep it on U.S. soil. And the criteria I used, there were three. First, the scandal name had to be fun to say,
Oh, that's
or
good.
at least
I like
that was a
that.
criteria. Yeah,
That
fun
was
to say.
That was an implicit
scandal.
criteria of mine.
Yeah, very important. A rule being that sex and drugs are greater than financial crimes, in my estimation, and then historical import was the third. So some on my list met some of those criteria, but not all. But
Historical
everyone met at least
imports?
one criteria. Huh?
Like importing, exporting?
No, like importance.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Sorry.
Yes, only importing scandals.
Okay, so fun name. That's your top one. So like best names win out, or is there no weighting to those criteria?
No waiting.
Okay. All right. So we have fun name, which was implied for Brian, I guess. And then sex and drugs greater than finance. And then the third one was historical importance, or as Josh
Correct.
likes to say, import.
I do like to say that.
Okay. All right, Brian, what were your criteria?
So I think historical importance was up there. So things that set precedent was definitely like a big factor. The fun name, I think that one was a given. And I think like a good story. I think the ones that, because there are a lot of scandals, but there are some that just like, they don't really stick. And so I tried to look for, or I think my top ones definitely had like the most salacious scandals. So there's like, sometimes there weren't even crimes committed. And you might be surprised how big of a scandal it was.
Okay, good story. There were a lot of scandals. So I did zero research. So I know maybe like 3 or 4 scandals off the top of my head, like the main ones. Hopefully some of those are in your list, but how many scandals are we talking?
Like for our list? What do you mean?
No. For like that you saw. You said there are a lot of scandals. How many presidential scandals are there? Did you also stick to US, by the way?
Yeah, only U.S. I briefly thought about going international, but I feel like it's too big of a category. Maybe in a future episode we can do top international scandals, because the international scandals also do like get like more crazy. I think just because they're like depending on what the rule of law is in these places.
Yeah, I feel like Brazil would have a lot of good presidential scandals.
Yeah, I mean, there's just like I think there's a lot more political violence like elsewhere that it makes for crazier scandals.
Like Saddam Hussein executing all of his opponents. Would that be considered a scandal?
Or just a Tuesday, I don't know.
Kim Jong-un fed his uncle to dogs, didn't he?
Yeah, true.
Okay.
Yeah, Brazilian scandal Lava Jato. That's a fun
Wait,
one to
so
say.
Kim Jong Un did the reverse of the Korean delicacy.
Wow. Okay. And we're canceled already.
Okay, we can edit that out in post. Okay, so you guys both stuck to the U.S. Good story. But Brian, how many around how many scandals did you even evaluate or see? Like how many were there to choose
Hundreds.
in the U.S.? Hundreds?
Yeah, I did a day's worth of days of research, and I haven't done any work this week because I've just been like researching scandals nonstop.
Okay. All right. Nice. Okay. All right. So then, were there any honorable mentions? Ones that you really, really want to mention but didn't make the top five?
There was
Yeah. So
yeah. You go first.
yeah, I had two honorable mentions. But should we save those? I don't want to steal thunder from
Yeah,
those that made the top five list.
let's save them for the end.
Oh, because you think that they could be on Brian's list.
Could be on Brian's list.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, we'll save the honorable mentions for after then. All right, are you guys ready to jump in?
Yeah, I'm confident. I'm confident in my top five. I feel good about
Okay.
it.
Okay, I have here a U.S. 5-cent piece. On the back, we have Monticello, which I believe is the home of Jefferson, one of our presidents.
It's
Maybe
not.
he.
It's not Monticello.
I'm saying it in the original Italian. Um, and I guess since Josh, you're the oldest of the group, you can call it. What do you want, heads or tails?
Give me heads, baby.
That was a good toss and catch, by the way. You guys probably couldn't see it, but
It was a poor toss, good catch.
Depends on what the outcome
tails.
is. Yes.
It's tails. Brian, you want to go first or you want to defer?
I'll go first. I'll set the tone for it. Are we going? Are we
The
going?
precedent, if you will.
Yeah. Are we going? Are we going 5-1?
I think start
Yeah.
with number 5 and then go down to 1. We'll just switch off.
Okay.
But before we jump in, let's pay some bills real quick with our first sponsor. All right, so that coin toss was brought to you by White House Bets. Do you think Trump will do time for his felony conviction? Will Biden awkwardly touch someone's hair at a campaign rally? Now you can win U.S. greenbacks from the actions of the people that oversee the Treasury on WhiteHouseBets.com. All proceeds go to the Capitol Hill Staffer Furlough Fund.
It doesn't.
Thank you, White House Bets, for that
This
sponsor.
does not constitute financial advice stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I think we need to say that.
Oh yeah, and past performance is no guarantee of future results.
You got to read all.
And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Oh right, yeah.
you got to
Yeah, yeah.
read.
Massachusetts, 1-800-GAMBLERS. Yeah. Of course. You just put it in post, Brian.
Seek help. Yeah, I'll put a little disclaimer at the bottom. All right. So I'm gonna start with one that I think it's. I don't know if it's necessarily it qualifies on as like a big scandal, but it's the corrupt bargain of 1824. So in the 1824 presidential election, there were like 4 candidates, including John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson. And then when the election happened, nobody won an outright majority in the Electoral College. So the House of the House had to vote on the president. And even though like people expected Andrew Jackson to win, John Quincy Adams, there was like an allegation that he bribed the then head of Speaker of the House, Henry Clay, with the job of Secretary of State if he got like the whole House to vote for him. And so John Quincy Adams became the president. He beat Andrew Jackson. But it set off this like precedent of like the other party investigating John Quincy Adams' party for corruption, and like there was a lot of corruption. So this was kind of like set the tone for his presidency. He was a one-term president, and then Andrew Jackson ended up winning the next election. But I thought this was like a good number 5 because there was like it it feels like now, yeah, there's like people talking about whether the House will have to elect, like whether that happens because like neither Joe Biden or Trump win a majority. So I thought this was a good a good moment in history to reflect on like what happens when there are really close presidential elections and whether people like can be bribed to just like straight up swing them.
I like that you started early, like from the beginning. That sets a nice foundation, I think, because I feel like people forget often how fucked up our two-party system has been from the beginning. Was there any information about the amount of money he offered, or he bribed them with the
With
Secretary
the
of
job,
State
yeah.
position? That kind of sounds like normal course of business these days.
Yeah, I mean, like, but at the time, it was like like the Jacksonians accused them of corruption, and it was like nonstop. Like, you guys are illegitimate, you guys are corrupt. So it feels very similar to today, right? Where it's just like with Trump, like he's not going to go to jail, but if he wins, like there's going to be investigations into Biden, and then it's just like going to keep going. So, but it feels like it feels like it's recent, but I mean, you go back 100 years, and literally 100 years ago. And this was going on like back then.
200 years.
Yeah, 200.
200 years, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. Corrupt bargain, fun to say also, by the way.
Yeah, great name.
I'll say, spoiler alert, I've Andrew Jackson on my list, but for a different scandal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Teaser for you.
What's your number 5, Josh?
Are we doing that? Are we going 5, 5, 4, 4? Or are we doing the whole list?
5, 5, 4, 4.
Yeah.
All right. I'll give you my Andrew Jackson scandal. It's Andrew Jackson's marriage, and you should know this about me, that I'm very pro divorce. Already done one divorce, interviewing candidates now for a second divorce potentially.
Dude, those are rookie numbers. You got to pump those numbers up.
I know. I got to get them up. Hopefully, this podcast will bring me future divorcees. It's the whole reason I'm in this thing. So Andrew Jackson gets out of his marriage without even needing a lawyer. Very impressive. He didn't even go to the courthouse. So he won up to me. I got out of mine without a lawyer, but had to go to the courthouse. He basically got pardoned, and that shit went away. And his opponent used the marriage against him, which I think candidates should do, because then he got married. And his candidate was like, oh, look at this. That's fucked up. You got married, which I think is hilarious.
What was it? What was the scandalous part of that one?
That he got out of his first marriage. At the time, think early 1800s.
Did he
Was
That
get
was very scandalous.
Did he-
against the law to get divorced?
Apparently not, but it was still scandalous. I mean, is it against the law to have sex in the Oval Office? No, but is it a scandal? Yes.
Fair. Okay. So was there a name for that? There's
I just named it Andrew Jackson's marriage.
Okay.
a scandal in and of itself?
Okay. And there was no sex. It was sex related, but there was, assuming, probably no sex.
There was probably some sex, and there was some historical import. To me, it sets the precedent that divorce is good.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. And that's your number 5?
That's my number 5.
Okay.
I missed
no laws broken.
in either one.
Yeah,
Okay, no laws broken yet.
But vows were broken.
true.
And then, Josh, you mentioned some third factor that I'm forgetting now, so forget about it. All right, Brian, you're number 4.
Okay. I've also got another I've got an Andrew Jackson one.
Wow, Andrew Jackson.
He was that time in history, the 1800s. Lots of good material to work with.
I had no idea.
Okay, so this one it was like tangentially and related to a president, but this is involved. It doesn't have a cool name either. So, but this one involved this guy named Daniel Sickles, who was a close friend of James Buchanan, the 15th president of the United States. And the scandal involving him was that in 1859, he murdered Philip Barton Key, the son of Francis Scott Key, the writer of the Star Spangled Banner. He murdered him across the street from the White House because he was having an affair with his wife. And so he murders this guy, and then he goes to trial, and he was the first case in U.S. history, criminal court, to plead insanity. So he pled insanity to that he was just like overcome with rage when he found out that his wife was cheating on him with this guy. And it ended up like it was in the tabloids. James Buchanan wrote him a personal letter, and there was a lot there. Like it seemed like there was a lot of media attention around him forgiving his wife for the affair, and there was a lot more attention on that than the actual murder that happened. It happened in broad daylight, and the jury ended up acquitting him. And yeah, it was like the first case where somebody legally pled insanity over this. And so it wasn't necessarily a presidential scandal, but he was boys with James Buchanan.
Interesting. So all the guys at that time were like, yeah, all the guys on the jury were like, I get it. He was pissed.
They were all guys, yeah. They were like, all right, understandable.
But he wasn't actually insane. It was just the legal argument they made.
That was like the defense strategy, yeah. But it was the first time, the first time it had really been used in court.
Wow.
And so like the newspapers, the tabloid media were like obsessed with the story.
Yeah, I feel like in the tabloids was a good selling point by you. I like the ring of that.
Yeah, so there's like one quote where it said that the papers said he was a hero. Daniel Sickles was a hero for saving all the ladies of Washington from the rogue named Key. So it seems like maybe this Key guy had a reputation, maybe a little bit of nepotism, and this guy was just he was just taking wives left and right. And this guy said enough of it.
He won the public.
Yeah, he's a hero, not the one we deserve, or not the one we want, the one we deserve.
Buchanan probably had some influence on the newspapers.
Probably.
Was this before the sedition? That time wasn't there a period in time where the press was going through it with the government, the Alien and Sedition Acts?
When was that?
Nah, I don't know.
And then
This is where research would have helped.
Yeah. And then to wrap it up, this guy ends up like fighting in the Civil War. He fought in Gettysburg. So this guy had like he was I think like a named general. So this guy after this blip on his resume of murdering this guy ended up having a pretty nice life afterward.
Daniel Sickles. That's good. I will say I'm a little disappointed in that it's just presidentially adjacent, and we don't know how much Buchanan was involved.
Yeah, we gotta build up to it. I think he was involved. He wrote him a personal letter. How could he not be involved?
He wrote him a personal letter just in general?
In jail.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that links him a little bit.
And he had a lot of powerful friends defending him. Daniel Sickles. So
the letter said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it."
Yeah, I got you.
All right, Josh, you're number 4.
All right, I'm going to go haymaker here at number 4, and go with Watergate.
Wow,
Watergate. Go with Watergate mostly because it made the tacking on of gate to all future scandals a thing.
Big name scandal right there.
Hate
big
that.
Name.
Hate the gate thing.
Yeah.
Hate the gate.
Ruin scandals forever.
Yeah, it is kind of annoying. Like it's like people just default to the gate for any scandal now. They don't try and think of a new fun name.
Because it's just a hotel. The name of the hotel is Watergate. Sorry, not to steal your story.
No, you'll also notice as I go through my list, there's definitely a thread of blowjobs in this, and it took away the fun of the term deep throat, because then it became about some old political hack who was feeding secrets to the press instead of something else.
Okay, gotcha. So okay, never mind. All right. I don't think we need to cover much of the Watergate, do we? Everybody probably knows.
No, yeah,
knows it.
give us your why is it number four?
Yeah, mostly for the gate thing. Obviously, historical import
Seems low.
big there. There was there was a guy named Deep Throat involved. Yeah, well, the fact that it ruined Deep Throat, I think, bumped it down the list a little bit. And really, there was a lot of competition to crack the top three of my list. So it just fell just outside.
Do you think that because of its popularity, it hurt it in your ranking?
Because of its popularity or because of its like being
Like
known?
you wanted, yeah, because it's so well known that you wanted something more. I don't know.
I don't know. I think my top three are also very, very well known. I don't think there are too many obscure scandals in my top three.
Okay.
But yeah, Watergate. The gate thing became a thing, but it's not so fun to say.
What's the second best gate scandal?
I mean, there was a burner gate.
What is that?
Involving
Is that the Sixers?
that was the Sixers.
I can't even think off the top of my head what another gate scandal is, but I feel like I hear that term every other week.
I think Deflategate is the only one I can think of.
Deflategate. Yeah. Sports really took it over.
Yeah, everything's a gate. How come this
Spygate? Yeah, Spygate and
Spygate.
Deflategate. Two
That's right.
Patriots scandals.
Right.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah, there should be. It's too bad. Like MassageGate didn't catch on for Robert Kraft.
All right, Brian, you're number three.
All right. So number three, this one's jam packed. This one, like, I guess if I have to pick one, it's going to be the whiskey ring scandal under the Ulysses Grant. But like this guy's administration had so many scandals that I think you could consider like his whole administration one big scandal, which like I was shocked to learn in my research. I thought this guy was like, fought in the Civil War, was an honorable guy, but it turns out that he was selective in his honesty. He was very well regarded in his time for like, oh, he's such an honest guy, like he's a man with like high morals or whatever. But that was until like one of his boys got in trouble, and then he was like, you know what, maybe we don't prosecute this case. So I've got two really quick ones that mashed into one. So the first one is the gold panic of 1869, and I think I like this one mostly because it's got a character James Fisk, who was like this New York like investor who they called Big Jim or Diamond Jim, and I think that's a fun name to say. But so very quickly, the gold panic of 1869. During Grant's administration, they were like people close to him, mostly like New York, like Wall Street people. This guy James Gould, Abel Corbin. These guys were telling President Grant to halt the sale of gold, and so like halt the Treasury sale of gold into the market, saying that it would like help farmers and stuff. But secretly, they were buying up the gold. They were trying to corner the market on gold, and then there's this like whole back and forth where Grant finds out that these guys are trying to like use his administration to corner the gold market, and then the Treasury ends up like selling $4 or $5 million worth of gold in one day, or like over the course of a couple days. The price of gold crashes, the economy crashes, and his wife suspiciously Julia Grant received like a $27,000 payment that people were like, that's kind of weird. Like, what? This guy said that he wasn't involved. But
what is that in today's dollars?
I don't know what it is inflation adjusted, but probably a couple $100,000, I would think. And then so like this was like very early in administration, and they were like already people kind of buzzing in his ear trying to get him to do things to help them make money. And so this one was a big deal just because like, yeah, he was like, his wife was maybe involved, his friends were involved, but he was still like above kind of the fray. And then the Treasury did did also like investigate it, but it sets the stage for this other bigger one, this whiskey ring scandal, which also involved a lot of people close to him, and was actually the first time that a president was subpoenaed. So there was like a deposition, and it involved these guys in the Midwest who were avoiding taxes, and so they were bribing IRS officials to I think save on almost $2 million in taxes a year with like distilleries and like whiskey distribution, and there was suspicion that Grant was involved. And he like famously was known for having a photographic memory, but then like in his deposition he couldn't remember shit. So people were like, what's this guy's deal? And at the beginning of the scandal, he like famously said like we're something to the effect of like we're gonna bring everybody to justice. And then his personal secretary, Orville Babcock, also a great name, he ended up being implicated in the scandal. And then he actually ended up testifying his defense. So he was like all for let's root out corruption until like everybody around him was involved in a lot of corruption. And it so it was like it ruined his chances at a third term, and like there were so many other scandals in his administration, but this was like the really big one. And it's just good old fashioned tax evasion.
Wow. So it's called the whiskey ring.
Yeah. There was the gold panic of 1869, and then the whiskey ring, and this was this tax evasion scandal.
Wow. So the inflation adjusted calculator that I have here can go back to 1913. What year did this scandal happen?
Like 1875.
Okay, so we can extrapolate from this, but $27,000 in 1913 would be $832,000 today.
Yeah, these people are making bank.
So
Especially this guy, Orville Babcock.
Millions of dollars, essentially.
Yeah. So this guy was super corrupt.
Yeah, wow.
Ulysses Grant.
The photographic memory thing is interesting, and then just showing up to the deposition not remembering anything.
Yeah, when you get deposed, it be like that sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like Brian's running through like a top 5 defense strategies. The pleading insanity, I don't remember.
Dude, you gotta understand who the pioneers of some of this stuff were.
Maybe this is how Dershowitz got his strategies.
I didn't know my wife was getting all this cash in the mail. Bob Menendez should be looking at this guy.
I like a good attempt to corner the market story too.
Yeah. With Big Jim, who's not going to help Big Jim corner the gold market?
Diamond Jim.
Yeah, Jubilee Jim also.
That's another alias?
That's the alias, yeah. So there's just like a lot of good characters involved So it's just like post-Reconstruction where like the wheels are off.
And I can see the good story thread from your criteria coming out here.
Yeah. There was also a salary grab scandal where he doubled his own salary. Like there was a lot of this guy was up to a lot. He was busy.
Interesting. Yeah, he's always portrayed as like the savior of the Republic, of the Union.
I think you could do a top 5 Ulysses S. Grant scandals episode on its own.
Wow. Okay. All right, Josh, you're number 3.
Yeah, you'll find that my list is much worse researched. So I probably had a secret criteria of not involving too much research to make my list.
You also didn't mention blowjobs as your criteria, but I guess that's a subgenre of sex.
Right, exactly. That's where the second criteria comes from, and
more of an
fittingly,
act.
my third is the Clinton sex scandal involving Monica Lewinsky.
I was wondering when that would show up.
So coined a new term for blowjob in calling it a Lewinsky.
Is that a thing?
That is a thing.
Does that one have a catchy name?
I think it's referred to as the Lewinsky scandal.
Yeah. I think it's not to jump in on it, but it is also like the first like major TV one. Just like 24-hour news, like we have nothing else to talk about. So it marks like a turn in the way the media covered it too.
You think that I feel like Watergate was pretty well covered. There just wasn't the distribution of televisions.
Right, right. Like CNN wasn't around for Watergate.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's an interesting point. There was a ton of it was, I mean, it stopped the nation, I would say.
Which one?
Yeah, led to an impeachment
Lewinsky.
trial.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was the
Yeah.
first impeachment since Nixon.
Also, something that always confused me about the Lewinsky scandal was there anything illegal? Does anything illegal? It's nothing. Infidelity is the what was the
I mean,
claim?
I think you could claim that, he abused his power.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
sexual harassment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it also, I think it like the scandal, the fact that it led to an impeachment, I think is also like a turning point for like anything goes now. Like impeachments are happening all the time now, where it's just like whatever you do, like people are trying to impeach you. So I feel like it was the beginning of cheapening the impeachment as like a congressional act.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It seems like now, like you don't have a good presidency if you're not getting impeached.
Yeah.
Has Biden been impeached yet? I know they've been trying to impeach him.
They're talking about it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think he's been. And do you have to be convicted by the Congress to actually be impeached, or is it just going to an impeachment trial?
You get
That makes you
impeached
impeached.
by the House, and then you get convicted by the Senate, is my
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So you can be two-time impeachment acquittals for Trump.
Yeah. All right, let's recap real quick before we go to our top two. So for Brian, he went corrupt bargain, Daniel Sickles homicide, adjacent to Buchanan, the whiskey ring under Grant. For Josh, he went Jackson's marriage, Watergate, and then the Lewinsky. I also feel like Lewinsky could be a good name of a sub at a restaurant. Just order a Lewinsky at a restaurant.
What's on the sub?
You mean like a hoagie?
Yeah.
I don't think you can call her that anymore.
All right. Number two, I think Brian, it's over to you for number two.
Yeah. Top two, baby. Here we go. These are my all-time greats. No undisputed champions. Best presidential scandals of all time, U.S. version. So number two is the Teapot Dome scandal.
Oh,
So Teapot Dome's great name. It also happened under another like hilariously corrupt president during a hilariously corrupt time like in the country during Warren G. Harding's presidency. And so before Watergate, this was Watergate. This was like the greatest scandal in American history before Watergate took it over. And so the goat's got to go down sometime. So it did go down to even though it's not on my list, spoiler, Watergate. But so Teapot Dome basically was just like classic corruption and bribery. And so it involved an oil field that had previously been designated for the Navy, where when Harding became president, he used an executive order to take control of the land, like put it under the control of, instead of the Navy, the Department of the Interior. And then this guy also with another great name, Secretary of the Interior Albert Bacon Fall, ABF, was found to have illegally leased the land in like a non-competitive type of auction to this like oil production company. And then there was like no paper trail. This is basically like got off without a hitch. But then there was this unexplained no interest loan that was uncovered when they like started investigating this. And the real giveaway was that like Fall was really behind on his ranch taxes, Albert Bacon Fall, and then he like suddenly started paying all of them, and this set off like all of these alarms where they were like, where did this guy get all this cash from? And it turns out it was from this like bribery corruption where they handed off these like oil contracts to this oil company, and now this guy was making mad cash. So the Supreme Court like ended up ruling on it, and this was actually the first case in history that gave Congress subpoena power. So like a few years ago, the Ways and Means Committee ended up getting like Trump's taxes, and that power comes from the scandal. Like the Ways and Means Committee in Congress, like individual members of Congress have subpoena power after it was ruled that in this case, like when the government was investigating, that basically like these businessmen, the Secretary of Interior, they all like are subject to these investigations. And then it was the first cabinet member ever in history to go to prison. Secretary of the Interior, Albert Bacon Fall. Shout out.
So Harding basically gave the Teapot Dome to Fall, and then Fall went off and profited, but then ended up getting caught.
Yeah. And this was like known at the time as this is like the biggest corruption scandal for him, for this this guy, Secretary of the Interior, and the Watergate was the second person of the cabinet to ever go to prison. So speaking of precedent, they made it okay for cabinet members to go to jail.
Was Harding implicated at all?
Hell yeah.
Oh, he was, but nothing happened to him.
I don't think so. I think he was like involved.
I wonder if this is where the term fall guy comes from.
Oh.
Yeah, I guess we don't say bacon guy.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, Josh, that Fall took the fall for Harding?
Sounds that way.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like maybe some minus points for Brian for all these scandals not really involving the president exactly.
Well, that's the mark of a good scandal, right? If it's a bad scandal if the president himself is actually like involved, right?
Oh, you're saying like a good scandal as in like I pulled off the scandal.
That's right.
Ah, okay. That's a fair argument. But definitely beating Josh out right now as far as story goes.
These are just like they're great stories, but then it also like doesn't sound that different than now. You can imagine some shit like that happening now.
Definitely. Okay, Josh, you're number 2.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad Brian went first because he did a much better job of describing my number 2, which is also the Teapot Dome scandal.
Oh, whoa. Daily double.
Daily double. I'll add on to all the things Brian said. Yeah, it was known as like the biggest scandal at the time, the Watergate before Watergate.
Pre-gate.
And yeah, very fun to say. Teapot Dome. Dome, also another slang term for blowjob. So yeah, just all the things you look for, I would say, in a presidential scandal. This one has it.
Yeah, that one's a classic. Okay, number 1, Brian, your top scandal.
Here we go. You guys ready? This one is an Andrew Jackson scandal, and this one is called the Petticoat Affair.
Oh.
And so this one was my favorite just because there were no laws broken, but there's just like an incredible story that did have presidential consequences down the road. So, quick background. This was basically a gossip and like infidelity crime. And so during Jackson's administration, there was this 28-year-old senator. His name was where did I lose it? Heard my story. Hold on. John Eden. And so John Eden ends up marrying this woman, Peggy, and she becomes his wife, but she was Peggy Timberlake at the time. And she was married to a John Timberlake. And she used to work at a bar. She was like 15, and so they were already kind of like she worked in D.C. and there were already kind of rumors about it being inappropriate for a young woman to be surrounded by drunk men all the time. And so she ends up marrying this guy, John Timberlake, and he's like a drunk. He ends up like going to the Navy, and he was heavily in debt. But then this guy, John Eaton, the senator who's boys with Andrew Jackson, ends up like taking an interest in her. And her husband mysteriously gets shipped off to the Navy. He dies. Some people say of pneumonia. Other people say that he was taken out. And less than 9 months later, she marries this John Eaton guy, the senator. And so
Salacious.
yeah, so it's like not even the customary mourning period. She's like, the body's not even cold. She's already marrying this John Eaton guy. And so John Eaton ends up becoming the Secretary of War in Andrew Jackson's cabinet. And his vice president, John C. Calhoun, his wife doesn't like this one bit. And so she gets all the other cabinet wives to oppose John Eaton and Peggy Eaton's marriage. And basically they create this rift in the cabinet because it's just like, for years she's been somebody who's not really welcome in the upper class of DC social circles. And they basically like don't want her around the cabinet. They don't want her in the White House. And this ends up creating this like massive split in the cabinet. People end up resigning, and they basically tried to cancel her and Eaton. And so there ends up becoming like all these people who resigned from the cabinet. And then at the time, Martin Van Buren, future president Martin Van Buren, ends up taking John Eaton's side and like defending them with Jackson. And so he like stays in his good graces. And he eventually replaces John C. Calhoun as the vice president in the next ticket and ends up becoming president there, like the de facto heir. So all this like victimless crime, more of a social crime, ends up actually leading to real consequences where cabinet members resign because their wives can't get along. And then this guy, this opportunistic Martin Van Buren, ends up catching that number 2 spot as VP and eventually the president. The Petticoat Affair.
Wow. What was the petticoat about?
The more you know. The women were like the cabinet wives were collectively known as the petticoats. So like the skirts that they would wear.
Gotcha.
That was their clique name.
Yeah, that is good.
That was their son.
Solid name for sure. Good story. And presidential implication.
Is a petticoat different from a peacoat?
Yeah.
Yeah, the petticoat is like the dress.
It's like the bottom part of the dress that's kind of like that big, wide thing.
A peacoat is a
Got
jacket.
it.
But yeah, it rattled the
similar.
whole administration.
Similar. Yeah, similar. Both articles of clothing.
Yeah.
There
There were a lot of rumors.
I'm learning a lot from Brian.
Tawdry,
Not so much from Josh, but
tawdry affairs.
maybe Josh can teach us something with his number 1 pick here.
Yeah, definitely saving the best for last here.
Let's see it. Knockout punch.
This scandal has a lot, has some nepotism involved. Not really a great fun name to say, nor anything else from my criteria except for historical import. So I leaned heavily on that criteria for this selection. And that is the installing of Brian Colangelo as the president of the Sixers after Adam Silver, head of the NBA, stepped in and made us fire Sam Hinkie, father of the process. And Jerry Colangelo becomes an advisor to the Sixers and then names his son team president. The son then proceeds to blow a massive amount of assets, picking Ben Simmons, number 1, trading Jason Tatum for Markelle Fultz. Just the list goes on. He wore extremely big collars that were ridiculous. And he ends up going down in aforementioned Burnergate, which he blamed his wife for, which actually the one respectable thing he ever did. changed the course of NBA history, of Sixers history. Still, we wait for a championship parade. Ended up going on Twitter under burners and committing HIPAA violations. So that's a law broken.
Wow.
This was the most researched one.
I don't think he needed to do any research on that. I think he knew all that information in real time.
I feel like you just hot swapped in that scandal because that's the off the top of the dome.
Yeah, more dome references. Yeah, that one I lived. You know, I felt that one
experienced it.
personally.
I remember that one. That was good. I mean, get a new slant is an all-time phrase.
Yes, about the collars.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So just to go through the five each, Brian Corrupt Bargain, Daniel Sickles Homicide, Whiskey Ring, Teapot Dome, Petticoat Affair, Joshua's Jackson's Marriage, Watergate, Lewinsky, Teapot Dome. Then I don't know the name, the Colangelo collar scandal.
Burnergate.
I mean, the collars was more
Burnergate.
Colangelo nepotism. Yeah, Colangelo Gate's a good one, like that. The death of the process is really what it was.
The death of
Murder of the process.
Yeah.
Wasn't it the start of the process?
No.
No, Hinkie had started the process.
Oh. How's the process? How's the process going now?
Yeah, not so great.
I do like to say that a lot, though. Trust the process.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I guess I am not surprised that Josh ended with a Sixers. Maybe he'll go number one Sixers related for every single list that we do. But thank you guys for sharing the list. That rounds out the high five. To pick our winner and give them their 5 seconds of fame, I got to go with Brian on this one. I mean, the research was incredible. The storytelling was great. The only one that Josh really told an equivalent story was his last one, which isn't even there is the word president involved, but not a U.S. president. So I guess it qualifies, but yeah, Brian, I think you really knocked it out of the park. I felt like I got a little history lesson too. So Josh did have more of the I would say, like, he had Watergate, Lewinsky, like those two are just classic recent, like everybody knows those. So yeah, Brian, over to you for your 5 seconds of fame.
Not as deep. I'll finish it with an Andrew Jackson quote. I would rather have live vermin on my back than the tongue of one of these Washington women on my reputation. So it's I think the story marked the Petticoat Affair marked the beginning of a long tradition of just like gossip, sex, and revenge in our politics.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks.
Can I say I'm surprised there was some Iran-Contra big scandal.
Yeah, that is a big one.
Didn't make any lists. Stormy Daniels also met several of my criteria.
Too easy.
Did not.
Oh yeah, honorable mention.
Recent.
Forgot about the honorable mentions.
Yeah, I would put all the recent ones in honorable mention.
There's been a lot of good recent ones. Biden's son.
Oh yeah, crack.
The email servers.
Crackgate.
The Steele dossier.